Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I will be giving you the long-awaited top 10 armies of March. I know this took much longer than normal since I normally upload the top 10 armies of each month around the 20th of the following month, but this time around my source didn't upload the information until the 27th of April, so it's a bit late this month. However, I have finally manned up and subscribed to the Best Coast Pairings app, so I should be able to get the information through that app at a much quicker rate. So now I should be able to get the top 10 videos out much sooner than I normally did. As for the lists in this video, keep in mind that these lists did well before the big changes that came from the big FAQ. So some of these lists will be invalidated with the new changes, but after looking at them, most of these lists seem like they would still work with the new rules changes. If you've been living under a rock and are unaware of the new changes, you can check out my big FAQ first impressions video where I cover the big changes. So for those of you who are new around here, I based these top 10 armies off of the list that placed in the top 3 the most frequently at ITC Major and GT events. If there were any ties, I took into consideration the army's past standing on the previous top 10s, and if I needed another tiebreaker, it came down to my opinion. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the top 10 armies of March. Number 10, Craft Worlds. Personally, I think this army should be much higher up on the list, but unfortunately most people who play Craft Worlds choose to play them as Inari, so vanilla Craft Worlds don't get as many top placings as they should. This time around, we have Lawrence Baker from Tabletop Tactics who brought vanilla Craft Worlds into this month's top 10 with his Altway army. He placed first overall in No Retreat 6, and with a Craft World that isn't Alatok. In my opinion, Alatok is still the best, but this does go to show that with the right pilot and the right list, you can make almost any sub-faction in the game work for you. Overall, I'm happy that vanilla Craft Worlds are popping up now, and with the recent FAQ changes, I can see more people heading in this direction. Number 9, Bray Knights. Yes, that's right, Bray Knights are in the top 10 once again. But you should note, this is one of the lists that would be affected by the new changes to reserves and deep strike. Going through the list, you could put the Nemesis Grandmasters in reserve alongside a unit or two of interceptors, but you still can't bring them down turn 1 unless it's in your own deployment. This can still work, but it does slow down the army a bit and somewhat nullifies its alpha strike potential, and also you can't use as many interceptors that was in the list because of the new rule of 3. If you change the list a bit, you could still technically use this list as a beta strike army, but I can't say for sure that it would be as effective because I haven't had the chance to test out Grey Knights with the new rules yet. So take this list and placing with a grain of salt because I'm not entirely sure if this same list would work with the new rules. Number 8. Jeanstealer Cult. Jeanstealers are back in the top 10, and we haven't seen much of them since the release of the NID Codex, since most of the Jeanstealer players opted to just play full NIDs since the release. I can see more Jeanstealer armies in the future though, because of the new changes from the big FAQ. Jeanstealers and their Cult Ambush are unaffected by those changes, while NIDs and mainly Hive Tyrant spam was pretty much killed. Looking at this particular list though, it looks like it would still be able to be used even with the new rule of 3. So if you want to check it out, go right ahead, link is in the description. Number 7, Orcs. The Greenskins are back in the top 10. I know a lot of people have been saying Orcs aren't that good, especially the people who watched my mini wargaming bat rep where I played against them. But they are still an amazing army even without having a codex. This time around, the list was more than just boys too. In fact, there was only 2 units of maxed out boys, and the rest of the list was a bunch of tank busters with HQ support. This list also featured 3 trucks, which I assume was used to move around the tank busters. Overall, I like this Orc list a lot, but it would have to make a couple of minor changes to follow the new rule of 3, and that change would be instead of running 6 units of 5 tank busters, they would have to run 3 units of 10. And the list would also have to drop 1 weird boy since they brought 4. Other than that though, I think this list could still do well even after the changes, and I am really glad that Orc players are showing that Orcs can do stuff other than just spamming boys and storm boys. Number 6, Ultramarines. The poster boys are back on the list, and this time around there is no Bobby G in the list. This list focused on bringing more DACA with only a captain and lieutenant as support. The list also featured a few units of aggressors and even some Primaris Marines and Redemptor Dreadnoughts. From what I see, this is pretty much a pure Primaris Ultramarine list, and again, it didn't include Rabute Gilliman. Which goes to show you don't need Bobby G in your list to do well, which is great because he went up in points since this list last topped the event. Overall, I'm glad to see people changing things up just like the Orc list did above and using different and unique lists for the Ultramarines. I like seeing variety in this game, and so far 8th edition hasn't disappointed when it came to that. Unless you're considering the stuff like Hive Tyrant spam and whatnot and everything. But even still, this was during Hive Tyrant spam and this list still did great. So there is diversity in Warhammer 40k 8th edition. Number 5, Imperium Soup. This list is no longer viable because of the new Battle Brothers rule and the fact that you can't use detachments with the Imperium keyword anymore, which literally destroys this list. So there isn't much to talk about here, but I did feel like mentioning it because it did top an event in March. Number 4, Astra Militarum. The Imperial Guard takes its place at number 4 yet again. It's been a while since they've been this high up on the list, but I've always said they were a good army. It's just that a lot of people started playing with other armies that were newer, which screwed the numbers, kind of like how Craft World should be higher up, but most people play them as Inari. At the time, it was just more optimal. But with the new changes from the big FAQ, the Imperial Guard got significantly buffed because they are the only army that is still able to spam tanks because they come in squadrons, meaning they can still spam 9 basilisks even with the new changes. They can also still spam infantry, and Guard infantry is the best in the game for their points cost, so they literally have everything going for them right now. They also can expand their deployment on turn 1 relatively safely now because of the changes to Deep Strike on turn 1. Meaning they have even more defense and a better screen against deep striking armies now. Also, I should note that this regiment that topped was actually a Talarn regiment, which is a first. I think we've only actually seen Cadia and Catachan make it onto this top list, but now we have Talarn as well. They also use some Blood Angel allies, which would be slightly affected by the changes to Deep Strike, but honestly, I think Deep Striking turn 2 is fine, as long as that's not your main game plan, and for this list, it wasn't. The Guard mow down the screen, and the Blood Angels come in on turn 2 or turn 3 to clean up whatever the screen was protecting. Overall, I think Astra Militarum are going to see a huge boost in play because of the recent changes, and I can see Blood Angels being the go-to allies for the army, since they are still really good and complement the Guard army extremely well. Now let's get into the top 3 armies of March. Number 3, Black Legion. The Sons of Horus are back at it again with another top 4 placing on this list. This time around there was actually 2 different Black Legion lists that topped, and both were completely different. One list focused on abusing the Tie to Traitor stratagem, and they brought 4 units of 40 cultists who surrounded Abaddon, and then a bunch of multiplying allies like Poxwalkers and Pink Horrors for massive board control. The other list again featured Abaddon since he is the best unit in Black Legion, but this list used Obliterators, Hellbrutes, and even regular Chaos Space Marines. I assume Abaddon walked up the board with the 5 units of CSM, while the Hellbrutes laid down some heavy fire while also moving up with the Horde to make use of their power scourges while re-rolling because of Abaddon. So these Hellbrutes were a mix of firepower and close combat, and they were able to get away with it because of the re-rolls from Abaddon, so their last cannons weren't useless as they were moving up the board. The first list that revolved around cultists and summoning wouldn't work as well because of the changes to Poxwalkers, but also because the stratagem Tide of Traitors was nerfed and is only a 1 use per game stratagem now. This second list, however, the one with the Chaos Space Marines, would probably still be able to perform as well as it did and wouldn't need to make any changes, other than waiting until turn 2 to drop the Obliterators and the Jump Pack Sorcerer. Overall, I'm glad we're seeing some Black Legion representation on the top tables and not just Death Guard and Alpha Legion when it comes to Chaos. Number 2. Tyranids. A lot of Hive Tyrant spam, but with the recent changes, that build should be dead now. I still think Nids are still going to be very good even after the changes, just people will have to try different things. I think Hive Tyrants were a crutch, to be honest, and the army can do well without spamming them. It just won't be as brain dead as drop the bulk of your army after hiding in reserves and blow away as much stuff as possible. Now you will see Jeanstealers coming back in, maybe some Exocrines and some other units that are really good in the Codex, but just stopped being used because Hive Tyrant spam was extremely efficient and easy to play. Overall, I think Nids are still great even after the changes, and the changes didn't kill Nids, it just killed their current list. Number 1, the best army of March goes to Inari. The Space Elves have been dominating for a while now, pretty much since the beginning of 8th, and to be honest, I don't think they're going to fall too far even with the changes from the big FAQ. I do, however, think that the specific list that has been dominating will now be dead. But, like the Nids, the Inari have a ton of great units and armies to pick from to make a good list, and with the new Drukhari Codex, and soon a Harlequin Codex, I don't see this army falling from grace anytime soon. Again, the current list is dead, but the army itself still has other ways to dominate. Personally, I look forward to seeing the new list that people come up with, and it's going to shake up the meta a lot, which is always great so the game doesn't get so stale. That's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content. And if you're already subscribed but want to help support the channel even further, you can do so on Patreon. The link is in the description. Also, if you guys watched my last video on my update about how I'm going to an ITC major event, if you would like to stay up to date with the progress of me building my army and painting my army, you can check me out on Facebook as well. The channel does have a Facebook page, so if you want to follow that, you can get up-to-date info on how the army is coming along. And also, when I'm at the event, I will update my current score in the tournament, just so you guys can see where I'm at and keep up to date with me. So anyways, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.